Well, hello and welcome to Talent Treasures. This is our opportunity to talk with our friends at the Open Gates about their number one talents identified in the Clifton Strengths 34 uh, profile. And today I'm Nancy Mackey of Open Gate Consulting. I'm a certified Gallup Strengths coach, and I have long been a fan of this instrument. It's such a great tool for not only individual coaching or personal development, but also for team building. It's just a fabulous tool that can be really effective in helping people understand themselves and each other. And joining me today is Anita Larsen. You're a business coach with, or business consultant with Lita Coaching, and so glad to have you. Your number one talent is Relator, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too. And to give folks a little background on the Clifton Strengths before we dive in, it is a profile that consists of 34 different talent themes, and these talents are characteristics that we're naturally inclined to. It's a little bit about how our brain is wired, how we like to think, where we kind of naturally go to. And we tend to, especially when it's our top one or two, like yours is Relator, Anita, that we tend to use them with ease. It's almost like breathing is the way I think about it. And so people high in the Relator talent theme, just a couple snippets about it, really enjoy close relationships with a small group of people and value deep, authentic, meaningful relationships. So that's just like a scratching the surface of Relator. But so with that being your number one, Anita, how do you see Relator kind of playing out throughout your day?
Well, it's funny because I hadn't even thought about this before I obviously took the test and learned
Hmm.
more about it. And as I mentioned to you briefly, it's I was surprised that Relator was my number one. It's not how I viewed myself. Um, I consider myself an introvert, and when you first just hear Relator, well, it sounds like you're relating to people, and I don't necessarily want to be around people all the time, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
So, but as I kind of read into it a little more, and what relator really means is, like you said, building those close relationships with a small group of people.
Right.
So, how that works out for me in my business and my daily life is really, you know, I avoid networking at all costs. I have been focusing on that this year because I know I need to do it. And although it's a struggle for me to go out and do it because I'm such an introvert, once I do it, I do find that one or two people that I really connect with and we just really
Yeah.
hit it off and we're able to create really good relationships. And once I get on that one to one, have that one to one conversation with them, then I always find something to relate to them with. We
Yeah.
always find something, some commonality that brings us closer together. And I think to me, that's what relator really is, that I'm able to really focus on that person and care about what that person cares about as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And showcase my passion, and that comes through in everything you do. So that's how you develop those really small personal connections, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Oh, I totally get that. And how what a neat way to think about networking where it's not so much that, oh, I have to work the whole room and talk to 100 people, but maybe I can find two or three people that I can really connect with, and that's call it good. So, and
Yeah,
that's utilizing your talent. Maybe
exactly.
I wonder if thinking about it that way takes a little bit of the pressure off too. I know it does for me because I'm pretty high in Relator, not as high as you, but
Yeah.
is that
No,
true
it,
for
it
you?
does. I think, and I don't know if that has to do with being a relator, but I
Hmm.
feel like I can kind of weed out pretty quickly who I can relate with and who I cannot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like within 5-10 minutes and reading the room, I'm like, no, those are my people. Those are not my people. And it helps me narrow it down. Like, who should I
Right.
really even spend my time with to build that
Yeah.
relationship? And I
There you
guess I do
go.
that in my personal life too. It's like,
Yeah.
these people are there, they have to be there, but these are
Yeah.
my people. It's
I love that. Yeah, you kind of have that radar that you've
Mhm.
maybe honed over time. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, do you find that other people notice this talent in you, or do you hear comments from people sometimes, or what strikes you that people are noticing that?
Yeah, I do. And it's funny because until I started networking, I would have never thought of it. But I do find that now, like those people that I connect with and I have then one-on-one conversations with, and we really click and we're like, okay, and they comment on that, like, oh, we get along so well, you can really relate to what
Yeah.
I'm doing, and I see your passion and we need to stay connected.
Yeah.
So I do get comments that we are developing those relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that is because I can kind of weed out who I can relate to and who I cannot.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I think relators are really good at building trust with others. Do you
Yeah.
find that there's
Yeah,
some truth
I
in
do
that?
hear that too.
Mhm.
And I had to like reread the profile of what Relator is.
Mhm.
And one of the things that stood out to me too, that I think is very true, is that Relators are very straightforward and to the
Mhm.
point, even to the
Mhm.
point of, if you're explaining processes, you kind of boil it down to this is the key elements and not getting
Mhm.
into all the details where you confuse other people.
Right.
And I think that's very much me as well. I'm
Yeah.
very direct and to the point, straightforward. And I don't have a lot of fluff, if you
Yeah.
will. So
Yeah.
I do think that helps to build the trust because they know
Yeah.
that, I'm gonna not gonna tell them what they want to hear. I'm gonna tell
Right.
them what I see and how I view it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's that authenticity too. I think
yeah,
people know what they're getting. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and I think about it through the lens too of our leadership roles, and maybe
Yeah.
how do you find the relator theme helps in motivating other people?
I think the I think it goes the same way. Like if I have, I'm thinking like in terms of whether it's employees or clients,
Right.
um, I only work with clients I relate with, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a benefit of doing what I do. If
Yeah.
it's such a close client relationship, so there's no point in myself or the client working together if we do not get along or we
Right.
can't relate to each other. So I guess in that respect, I chose the perfect profession because
Mm-hmm.
I have to find those people that I can work with and that appreciates my skills so we don't
Right.
waste time or money either way. So I think that's very beneficial. And like we just said, it helps build the trust.
Yeah.
As far as people that work for me, that's a little trickier because,
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna necessarily have that close relationship with all your employees.
Right.
And I do think sometimes it can be a drawback for me because I do attempt to have that close relationship, or maybe I shouldn't. So setting the
Interesting.
boundaries and making sure it
Mm-hmm.
stays, employee, employer. And
Right.
yeah, so sometimes if I relate closely to somebody that I work with or that works for me, then, setting those boundaries can be a little more difficult.
Yeah. Well, I could see that. Yeah. And that you just have to be real attentive to that. But
Yeah.
we desire that depth, and yeah, how
Hmm.
do you get it? But by
Yeah, because with
revealing.
clients, it's fine.
Right.
For them, it's great if I don't set those boundaries because the closer our relationship is, the better they feel that I can
That's
work with
right.
them and help them and understand them.
That's right.
That with, outside of clients is not necessarily that good.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting with the Clifton strengths because there's this principle that all the talent themes are neutral, meaning they're neither good nor bad, but our talent themes can serve us well and help us to succeed and grow and actually build those talents into
Mhm.
strengths by really utilizing them and just keeping them top of mind and finding ways to use that relator talent throughout the day.
Mhm.
But and then on the flip side, they can also be barriers and get in our way. And so I know my number one gets in my way all the time. So do you ever find the relator kind of as a barrier in some ways? And if so, what might those be?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything I said is a positive could also be a negative, right? The fact like
Yeah,
I weed people out, like these other people I
right.
relate to. Okay, well, maybe give everybody a chance.
Yeah,
Not that I
yeah.
don't give them a chance, but
Right. No, I know
it
what you
doesn't
mean.
all have to be that, you relate to them to that level.
Right.
And so sometimes maybe I lean too much on that and I need to be a little more open.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, setting boundaries because you get very close with people and sometimes it doesn't need to be that close.
Right.
So
Right.
that's definitely I think could be go both ways.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and just being aware of that, I think, is part of how we encourage people to utilize the Clifton
Mhm.
strengths. So, yeah, no, that's very, very good insights.
Yeah.
And then another fun thing is sometimes because a lot of these talent themes have some similarities to them, and so it can be fun to contrast. So I wanted to read two for you: relator and then includer, which
Mhm.
and I can't remember where that fell on your Clifton Strengths 34, but relator, a couple words that describe relator are socially transparent, and I invite my friends in. An
Mhm.
includer is socially inclusive. I invite outsiders in. So does that resonate with you in any way? So some people are really
Yeah.
high in the includer.
Yeah, I'm actually looking and includer is not in my top five at all,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is interesting because yes, I include invite my close circle in, absolutely. But I do feel like I also invite outsiders in. Like I'm always the one for the underdog, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody's sitting on the sidelines.
Yep.
But I think maybe what I don't necessarily take the lead on it. Like I can invite them
Mhm.
in with me, but not necessarily in a social circle because I don't
Mhm.
find that that's within my realm to
Yes.
do, to
Yes.
invite them in with other people. So I
Yes.
can invite them in with me, but not with a bigger social
Mhm.
circle.
Mhm.
That's maybe where the delineation is for me.
For sure. And
Yeah.
and again, that demonstrates that that there's a lot of I think wiggle room in all of these things that you
Mhm.
might be using your relator is how you're including other people, whereas an
Mhm.
includer is just thinking about that circle. So it's just fascinating how the mind works, right? But we might
Yeah.
be achieving the same objective in the end, which
Yeah,
is
because I never really thought of that. I thought it was more like cultural upbringing, but
mm,
I'm not one to invite other people to a social circle. Like I
mhm,
feel that that's not for me to do. I
right,
mean, if I'm in the
some way,
circle, why is it not? I don't know.
right,
But yeah, that's kind of a thing with me for some reason.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
never thought that that had anything to do with my strengths, but yeah,
yeah, yeah, no, fascinating, yeah, and very insightful, right? It's like and
yeah,
authentic, which is true to your relator nature. So
right.
I like that. So if you think about what are some of the things maybe that you need from others to grow and succeed as a relator?
That's a tough question. Um, I don't know if this has to do with the relator trait or not, but like I mentioned before, just one of the things that were mentioned in the overview of it is that I like to get to like the gist of things, like,
Yeah,
never mind all the details, like what is the crux of it? Like,
right.
and that's, I think it's a good thing. I'm very operational and process driven, which you would
Mhm.
think would include a lot of detail, but not necessarily because you have to
Yeah,
get define the real problem.
that's right.
And it does drive me crazy when we get into too many details.
Yeah.
So I need for people to not get so focused on the details. That's what I need.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
come on, get to
No,
the
that's
point. That's what I need.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
like you said, and that's a hallmark of relators too. And
Oh,
also,
yes.
yeah, is the um, wanting to solve things together, right? Like
Oh,
working
yes.
on a problem
Mhm.
with a small group of people. It's that solving aspect that is an interesting facet of the relator theme. So
Yeah.
if you think, let's think about, say, you have a problem you have to solve, and maybe it's a relational problem, like in a conflict situation. How
Mhm.
might you use your relator to go about tackling it?
Well, I'm definitely a problem solver. Like, I
Mm,
love problems and finding
mhm.
solutions for it. So now a conflict resolution is a different type of problem, and I also avoid conflicts at all costs. So
I think you have
that's
a
a
lot of
little
company on
tricky.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Um, but I do think in I know, like, the way I would usually solve it is show how I would relate to it and give examples of how I relate to it in my own
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if that's a relator trait, but that tends to be how I show that I relate is just share my own
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Um, yeah, I mean that's really it, just showing that I can relate and
Yeah.
move from there, like put the try to be more logical than emotional with it, showing
Right.
that I relate and now like logically, how do we solve this
Yeah.
together? You know,
Yeah.
what can you do? What can I do? How do we get to a
Yeah.
point that compromises and gets us where we need to go together?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, is there anything, any maybe insights or words of wisdom that you might like to have for other folks with the talented relator as we close up our thoughts?
No, it's just like I said, it's interesting because some of these things that we talked about, I hadn't really even considered in, in the relation to Clifton strengths. I think more like, my culture, my background, my
Right.
upbringing, my experience. So, and maybe a question back for you. So, do you think that the Clifton strengths and how the priority or what you're assigned, if you will,
Right. Right.
is that based on who you are as a person and your personality, or is it based on is a combination of all of the above?
That is a great question, and one that probably the psychologist that developed it could
Right.
give you a much more detailed answer. But my my impression and understanding is part of it is just how your brain is naturally wired,
Mm,
right? And so it is a valid and reliable instrument, meaning valid, meaning it's pretty accurate about what responses you get. So most people, 99% will respond saying, "Oh yeah, that's spot on. That's me."
mhm.
Occasionally we'll get some that are a little invalid, and that's usually if people um, answer too many neutral
You're
responses.
right. Yeah.
So that's the validity part. And then the reliability part is, does it test the same over time? So if you took this instrument again 5 years from now, I've taken it 3 times in the last 20 years, and my top 10, well, maybe they shuffle around a little bit, but they've been pretty consistent. And
Hmm.
that's the reliability. So that's part of personality. But then if you think about what our personality is shaped by, it's our
Right. Yeah.
upbringing, our environment, our um, yeah, so there's a lot of factors, right, that go into that.
Mhm.
I think sometimes I've taken these instruments at different points in my life, like maybe the job you're in sometimes where you're really focused
Yeah.
might change. So I've seen a few folks where it's changed radically, but it's very rare.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's
Thank
a
you.
great question. Yeah, but there's psychologists that could probably give you a much uh, more lofty answer than
Right.
I can.
Yeah.
But no, that's great. Well, thank you, Anita. And this has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate all your insights.
No,
And
thank you.
yeah, and so with that, we'll close up for today. And thanks everyone for listening. And hope you tune in again next time.